Oh, yeah. It was actually pretty good. Yeah. Oh, really? 30.
Yuri, mic check. Mic check, Yuri. 10-9-8-7-6-5.
Is everybody good? Good morning. Thank you for being here. We are here to announce a very important arrest of two defendants in connection with a horrific shooting that happened 7/10 of a mile from here, a short walk in front of Jack's Bar at Kensington and Allegheny. This is a shooting in which two young men jumped out of a car and shot 9 people. 9 people. As I understand the facts, there were something like 51 fired cartridge casings located and placed in evidence on this case. It has been a minute since this happened. This occurred in November of 2022, but thanks to some incredibly good work by the Philadelphia Police Department, the Gun Violence Task Force, we are able to announce today that both of the individuals responsible for this horrific shooting are now in custody and are facing very, very serious charges. Fortunately, none of the 9 victims died. However, these young men turned that location into a war zone and shot 9 people in the back, in the side, in the leg, wherever they could, with zero regard for anyone who was out there on that day. I do want to acknowledge that we have with us some distinguished guests. We have with us ADA Bill Fritzy of the Gun Violence Task Force. He is the chief of that unit. ADA Alyssa Amoroso, and that is ALYSSA Amoroso, AMOROSO, who is the prosecutor closest to this prosecution from the Gun Violence Task Force. Captain James Kearney, that's Kearney, I hope, did I get that right? Is here from the Philadelphia Police Department on behalf of the Shooting Investigation Group, and he is here with members of his team. He will be introducing them when Captain Kearney is able to speak. We have Council Member Mark Squilla with us, Council Member Jim Harity, 2 members of what I think they call the Kensington Caucus. Is that what we call it now? We have Carlin Crawley with us, who is the Chief of Staff for Council Member Ketsi Lozada, another member of the Kensington Caucus. This is a group of City Council people who have been in close communication, not only with the Philadelphia Police Department, but with our office, with whom we have been meeting privately for months to see what we can do to come up with additional solutions to the issues that we face in Kensington. We also have ADA Deborah Watson-Stokes, who is a senior advisor and professional developments advisor in the office, and she also works on special projects. Many of those special projects are ultimately about gun violence. And then last but not least, we have First Assistant Robert Listenby, who is here. So very briefly, what is the Gun Violence Task Force? The Gun Violence Task Force has existed for about 20 years. It is a cooperation between the Attorney General's office, meaning their agents, and the Philadelphia District Attorney's office, meaning our lawyers. And it exists because the truth is that the illegal trade in guns and a lot of activity that involves violence and guns travels beyond the county line. Often the gun shows are elsewhere. Often parts that are obtained for the purpose of putting together a polymer gun or an illegal gun are purchased elsewhere and are assembled within the city of Philadelphia. So it has been, and it remains, in my opinion, a really good example of collaboration between law enforcement agencies. The Gun Violence Task Force is doing this case, and this is a case that was solved and that resulted in probable cause justifying the arrest that we are here to announce, in part because of technology, because of forensics, because of DNA, because of cameras, because of the ability to obtain recorded conversations and recorded activity and to use it to close a case that was actually very, very difficult to solve. So as I mentioned earlier, this occurred at Jack's Bar, so we are clear. That's basically SEPTA. That is within steps of SEPTA's Transportation Center at Kensington and Allegheny for the Market-Frankford line, or as we call it, the L. Our office has charged this case and will vigorously prosecute it. As in all cases, we have directed our Victim Witness Services office to reach out to all people affected and to try to provide whatever services we can. Without further ado at this time, I would like to call forward first Captain Kearney, and then Mr. Fritzy and Ms. Amoroso will address some specifics of the case, and then I will come back up to introduce our distinguished representatives from City Council. Captain Kearney.
Good morning. Thank you, D.A. Krasner, for inviting the police department here today. I'm here to explain that I am James Kearney, the captain of the Shooting Investigations Group. I have that honor, and I'm here with Sergeant Vince Nowakowski, Detective Tom Summergy, and Detective Matt Didak. These officers were assigned the case of 9 people ranging between the ages of 23 and 40 shot in Kensington on November 5th, 2022. And my message is to let everyone know that the police department, with the resources, the technology, and the collaboration that we have with the AD's office, Gun Violence Unit, the U.S. Marshals, the ATF, the DEA, the probation, parole, and prisons, we were able to bring this case in. These detectives were determined, they were persistent, they had integrity, and they brought this in and we will hope and assume for a successful prosecution. One adult male was arrested yesterday. He is currently in custody. There is a second male juvenile who is in custody in the western part of the state, and he will be brought down next week to face these charges. I will then turn it back over to D.A. Krasner.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Today's case is yet again another example of collaboration, and I want to thank the police department, and especially the Shooting Investigation Group that works tirelessly on their cases, but has allowed Gun Violence Task Force and the DAs who prosecute the cases for that unit to assist in these investigations, and that really is the centerpiece here. We are able to conduct and provide resources to the police department, even in just manpower, to listen to prison tapes, to listen and to review cell phone extractions, and assist in these investigations, and that's really what brought this case to a close. The work of the detectives, everything that they brought in, the mountains of evidence, are things that we can help and assist with. I think the message here today is you've heard of the Gun Violence Task Force in South Philadelphia, you've heard of the Gun Violence Task Force. I want to again thank my staff and especially ADA Amoroso, who spent the time to work with the detectives and really take the time to bring this case home. And at this time, I'll have Ms. Amoroso come forward.
Good morning. My name is Alyssa Amoroso, and I'm an Assistant District Attorney assigned to the Gun Violence Task Force. Today, we're announcing the arrest of Michael Smith Davis and an unnamed juvenile defendant for the shooting that occurred on November 5th, 2022, because of the diligent investigative work and the bravery of our law enforcement officers. Specifically, I'd like to thank the Philadelphia Police Department, Detective Simoji and Detective Didak, along with numerous other members of the shooting investigation team that made it possible that night to make sure that all of those victims were transported to the hospital, as well as the agents from the Attorney General's office and the analysts from the Gun Violence Task Force, specifically Paul Haggerty, as well as the DEA Task Force Group 25. Michael Davis Smith and the unnamed individual are accused of driving to the 800 block of Kensington Avenue that night at approximately 10:40 p.m. They exited a vehicle and fired a barrage of shots at a group of people at a social gathering outside of Jack's Bar. There were 41 fired cartridge casings recovered that night. 9 victims suffered gunshot wounds and were immediately scooped to Temple Hospital. I have spoken to several of the victims and their families and have been unable to reach about 4 or 5 of them, so if you see this, please call the District Attorney's office. In this case, much of the investigation was due to the police work of Detective Sumoji and Didak and the shooting investigation group. The Gun Violence Task Force collaborated with them using our cutting-edge technology and physical forensic technology. In addition, we received assistance from our firearms identification unit in Philadelphia. Working together with the police, our unit was able to strengthen the evidence and feel confident that we have arrested the correct individuals that terrorized Kensington Avenue that night. The defendant was arrested yesterday on Kensington and Lippincott Avenue with a group of individuals. Ultimately, this is a clear example of our goals to remain the same. We will continue to work closely with the Philadelphia police, the agents of the Attorney General's office, to solve unsolved shootings and homicides in this city. We will continue to arrest and prosecute the individuals that commit gun violence. There are dangerous individuals who think that they have gotten away with crimes in this city, but I think that our unit has shown time and time again that the Gun Violence Task Force will find you. Again, I would like to commend the diligent work of the police department, the agents of the Attorney General's office, as well as the analysts for the long hours that they put into making this investigation and these arrests possible. Thank you.
Thank you, ADA Fritzie and ADA Amoroso. If there are victims of this shooting out there who have not been in touch with our victim witness services, the number where they should call is 215-686-8027. Any victim of the shooting who requires services or has not been in contact, 215-686-8027. Let us help you. Let us use our resources to assist you. I also want to point out that what you just heard expressed by ADA Amoroso, the reality that we want to solve not just new cases, but old cases. That is just one of the reasons why this office is seeking to establish a collaborative cold case unit within the DA's office to work very actively with PPD to see what we can do. In light of the evolution of DNA, the capacity for DNA now to solve cases we couldn't solve before, such as the Elias Diaz case, which was announced a couple weeks ago. In light of the constantly changing types of technology that can track criminal activity in ways that were not possible before, we are very optimistic that there are a whole lot of cold cases that can be solved and that we can bring the individuals responsible to justice. It is now my pleasure to introduce 3 members of City Council or their representative, all of whom will come up to speak on this point. They are reflective, as I said earlier, of the Kensington caucus, of the group of council members who either for years or more recently, in the case of a newer member, have been working in government to try to see what we can do to deal with some of the persistent issues in Kensington, issues that in some instances have been here for 60 years or more, but issues that in other instances are far more acute and far more serious than they were some time ago. At any rate, we are very grateful at the DA's office that this group of council people sits around a table with us at all hours, sometimes very early, actually, and spends hours going through ideas that they have, that we have, that PPD has, about how we can all be more effective in the work that we need to do to protect public safety. In this order, it is my pleasure to present Carolyn Crawley, who is Chief of Staff on behalf of Councilmember Ketsi Losada. Councilmember Losada could not be here today, although she's a very active member of the Kensington caucus, but we are delighted to have her Chief of Staff, Carolyn Crawley. We also have Mark Squilla, who will have the opportunity to speak second, and Jim Harity, both council members, both extremely concerned with what's going on up here. And after those 3 have spoken, I will come back up to how shall I put it, manage question and answers. Ms. Crawley.
Good morning. Councilwoman Lozada could not be here in person, but thought it pertinent to share her appreciation and gratitude to the multiple law enforcement organizations that came together to make this arrest happen. This is a true demonstration of government working together for the benefit of the city, and more specifically, the 7th Councilmanic District. The Councilwoman has made it abundantly clear that her priority is creating a safe environment for the people living and raising families in the Kensington community. She acknowledges that a lot of trust needs to be rebuilt between government and this community, but the arrests made yesterday are one step toward improving their quality of life and regaining their confidence. Thank you again to the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office, specifically the Gun Violence Task Force, PPD's Shooting Investigation Group, and the 2 assigned detectives for their diligence in bringing these arrests home. This is a great example of teamwork that gives her hope of what can be achieved when we all work together. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Councilmember Mark Squilla, the 1st District, one of the members of the Kensington Caucus. All members, Councilmember Driscoll, Lozada, myself, Councilmember Harity, all represent parts of the Kensington area. Today I believe, is a great day. It shows what collaboration could do. Working with our great workers here at the Police Department, the District Attorney's Office, the Attorney General's Office, the Gun Violence Task Force. This shows you, if we break down silos, what we as a city can accomplish and really bring in public safety to making that a true priority for not only the Kensington area, but the entire city of Philadelphia. This is an exciting moment because we heard a great announcement yesterday with the Deputy Police Commissioner Rosario, who's going to be stationed and focused on this community, but also understanding One Philly and the mayor's message of everybody working in the same direction, bringing resources from all the departments together to be able to solve these crimes. When people hear that incidents happen and say nothing is going to happen, they're not going to find the guys and nobody's going to get in trouble. Consequences are now, you hearing there are consequences for these actions. These actions that take place today will have consequences and they're going to be prosecuted to the full extent of the law, right? And that happens with this collaboration and coordination between all the departments. Nobody could do this alone, and it's the collaboration that's going to be needed ongoing to really continue to give people hope, and not only Kensington, but the entire city of Philadelphia, when they really see how we as a city are attacking public safety and the lawlessness that is out there. So today, it's a great day for me as a council member, with my colleagues, with the District Attorney Krasner, his staff, and the police department, the Attorney General's office, and everyone who's involved in this, knowing that as we work together, more and more hope will be established in these communities, and then public safety and the feeling of people could go outside, feel free to live in their communities, and no matter where they live, they will be safe in the city of Philadelphia. So thank you so much, and great job.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Councilman Jim Harity. As my colleagues stated, we are all members of what we are calling the Kensington Caucus. For far too long, this neighborhood that I live in, I live literally a block from Jack's Bar. I know the people that hang at Jack's Bar. They are my neighbors. They are the residents of Kensington. And as my colleague said, this is just one piece of a big puzzle that we are now putting together. But I feel hope for the residents of Kensington, because this is what happens when government works together, when they come together with a mission. And our mission is to clean up Kensington, to make Kensington the kind of place that people want to live. I've been living here for over 16 years. My wife has been in this neighborhood for 50 years. The neighbors need a break. They are good people. They are just scared. They cannot leave their homes. And this just goes to show you that we're not going to stop. The detectives with the police department, the district attorney's office, the attorney general's office, it doesn't matter how much time has lapsed. This case is from 2022. We are coming for you. We are going to get you. We are going to arrest you. We are going to charge you, and we are going to convict you. So do us a favor. Stay the hell out of our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, all members of council, members of the Kensington Caucus, for your passionate words. I would be remiss, though, if I didn't mention that when we last sat at the Kensington Caucus table, we had with us Mike Driscoll, Councilmember Driscoll, who could not be here today, but is deeply engaged and very interested in what's going on here. And we also had with us Deputy Commissioner, now Deputy Commissioner, Pedro Rosario, who was with us actually before he was sworn in. And that is the kind of group effort, the kind of meeting of the minds, the kind of willingness to discuss any disagreements that may exist that can make a tremendous difference. Several of us are on pretty tight deadlines here, but we will briefly do some Q&A, and with your permission, I'll just start over here.
The name of the defendant, was it Mark Smith Davis or Mark Davis Smith? Because I think it was said both ways. Mark Smith Davis?
Michael.
Mike, okay. And what is his age?
25.
And then I don't know if this is a question for you, DA Krasner, maybe for you, Councilman Larry. We were here yesterday in Kensington, or in Kensington Park, just a day ago, hearing about this initiative in Kensington, the change that needs to come here. We didn't hear what change needs to happen, and I wonder if anyone can touch on what you think needs to change in this neighborhood in order to make it safer.
Well, I think I will be the briefest, but I will invite all members of council if they care to jump up to say what they think. Simply put, I think that Mayor Parker's vision that you bring all city resources together and that you cooperate and you stop the, how shall I put it, the culture of claim and blame, and you actually get things done together is what is needed. That means tremendous public health resources. That means a willingness to put money into a neighborhood that doesn't have a ton of votes. Let's be blunt about it. That's the reality of part of what has happened up here for a very long time. So long as we are willing to bring modern law enforcement and modern prevention, bring housing, as long as we are willing to bring everything else that makes a community whole, we could see this community, which has been suffering for 60 years and suffering terribly since the opioid crisis hit and since the pandemic hit, we could see this community change in very, very positive ways. I'll step back and defer to my brothers and sisters in council.
Listen,
You gotta go to the mic.
I'm sorry. We are, the Kensington Caucus, our whole purpose is to make sure that the residents of Kensington feel safe. As I've stated before, this has not happened overnight. It will not change overnight. But what you have is a commitment from the council people, the mayor, the district attorney's office, the police department. We are going to do whatever it takes to make this neighborhood safe again, a place where kids can walk to school without having to see and face the trauma that they face. But it's going to take, as they said, everybody rowing in the same direction. The services have to be wrapped around. Crime is only one problem here in this neighborhood. We have a myriad of problems. But what we're looking at is how do we bundle services to not only get rid of the crime, but to also help the people struggling with addiction out there. The point is not to send them to jail for crimes that we know are drug related, to support their habit, like retail theft and other things. What we want to do is charge them with the crimes that they're committing so that we can actually steer them into the alternative programs so that maybe one day they'll actually have a life. And for us, that's what it's about. It's just about coordinating, coming together, stop all the blame, stop pointing the finger at everybody, and let's just do the work and get this stuff done. And that's what we're about. That's what the Kensington Caucus is about. Ketsi Lozada, I call her the fireball. You know what I mean? She's ready. Mark is ready. Mark's been doing this for a long time. He has been fighting this fight longer than anybody on city council. And I've been in meetings where this man sat there and got beat up for something that was beyond his control. But now we have a coalition. We have the means to do this. We have the programs. The money will be there. We are committed to do whatever it takes for the mayor to be able to initiate what she wants to initiate in that neighborhood without getting into our plan. We don't want to give up any details because we don't want people knowing what we're going to do. So, thank you.
Councilmember Squilla, I'm going to reiterate what Councilmember Harity said, because there is a feeling right now, not only through city government, but through the communities of hope. And that hope is because the excitement of new leadership. And sometimes change is good, right? When you are an elected official, and I've been in for 3 terms, you get used to doing certain things a certain way and you don't really want to change up. When somebody new comes in, they give you that opportunity to make these changes. And that opportunity is also to break down the silos of everybody working individually, right? Collaborating, coordinating together. We're not always going to agree on everything everybody wants to do. Yeah, I have been beating my head against the wall on some ideas that we wanted to do that they weren't able to do, but now we're going to be able to try some of these different things. As you heard Councilmember Harity say, again, crime and policing and the district attorney's office is just one part of public safety, right? There's a public safety coordinator in Adam Greer that's going to be working with all departments throughout the city of Philadelphia. We didn't have that before, right? We're going to be talking about Parks and Rec, the Streets Department, Health and Human Services, right? Every L&I, health, everybody will be collaborating on public safety in a neighborhood. When you come into a community, it's just not about having police go arrest somebody, but there's an abandoned house that needs to be boarded up. You board it up. There's lights that are out that need to be fixed. You put the lights on. You clean the streets. You see Clip riding around here, cleaning up the neighborhood. That coordination and collaboration gives people hope. That's what we're seeing right now. That's the difference than what we had before. And so now you're starting to see some of these actions in place. Yes, tomorrow you're not going to see Kensington live and all the stores open back up and people shopping up and down the avenue. But next year this time, you're going to see a big difference. And and we have to be held accountable if that doesn't happen. We didn't have this collaborated effort before. We're building that collaboration now. It's going to take a little bit of time, but you're going to see it. You feel it. I feel it. I don't know if you feel it, but I feel it, and the community feels it. So we're building hope in the community. The community is also part of this process, right? They're involved. They're engaged. They're at the meetings. They're being part of the solution. And I think by doing that, we create a new day here in Philadelphia and the Kensington area. Thank you.
All right, our schedules are tight, but are there any other questions?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
The prison time they could be looking at, and do you know the motivation, gang, drugs?
I think it's probably better. I do know the answers to this, but let me allow the people doing the work to get the credit. So, ADA Amoroso.
This was not a gang-related motive here. We believe it was due to a prior robbery that instituted this was a retaliation. In terms of what the possible time, because there are 9 victims, the defendants have been charged with attempted murder for each of those, which are all F1s, which carry a maximum of 20 years on each case.
And when you finish, can you give me some answer in Spanish, a little detail
Sure.
in Spanish?
Happy to. What
Whenever you
over on this? Anything in particular?
Whatever you'd like to.
All right, just something. Okay. Estamos aquí para anunciar el arresto de 2 personas que participaron en un tiroteo que causó heridas a 9 personas muy cerca de aquí, muy cerca de Frankfurt and Allegheny, SEPTA sitio. Después de más que un año de investigación entre los policías, agentes del Attorney General y también en nuestra oficina, the Gun Violence Task Force, en nuestra oficina, tenemos arrestos de 2 personas que han disparado en contra de 9 personas y estamos aquí para decir que vamos a proseguir estos casos de una moda bien seria. Yes. Tina Holgate, how are you?
Just curious, I know you said it was a retaliation from a robbery, if I heard you right. Why would they do this? Why would they just walk up and just spray a crowd? Were they just trying to get somebody specific and didn't care if they took other people out? And also, are the victims cooperating with you guys as to identity and all that?
Once again, there's what I know and there's what I should say. I will let the people closest to it answer that question for you.
It's our understanding that it was targeted. However, they did not particularly care how many people they were going to injure or seriously injure that time when they were taking that retaliation at the time. I apologize, what was the second part?
Are the victims cooperating with you?
We've had interviews with many of the victims. As I said, I've been in contact with about 4 or 5 of them already, but we're still trying to locate a few more as well to let them know what's been happening with this investigation.
AJ, I'm a racist, so you have to get going back. But, so the juvenile, I know you can't say his name, but is he or she charged already? I know you mentioned attempted murder for the defendants. Is that one of the charges that the juvenile's facing? Are there other charges?
The juvenile will be brought down next week for charging, so he has not been charged as of right now.
Okay. And then this is for DA Krasner. The 15th Street station shooting from last night. Any updates on 16-year-old who was shot in the head? His condition, and any idea on motive for that? Why they opened fire on the platform? And similarly to this question, did they fire randomly to the crowd and strike the teen that was injured, or was it targeted for some reason? You know, how many teens or young people were there?
Captain, do you want to address any of that? Okay, please.
The shooting investigations group is currently handling that case. It came in last night. The victim is extremely critical, and we're hoping to survive, but like I said, extremely critical. There was a lot of video recovered from down on the SEPTA platform, which does depict our shooter, who withdrew a gun and fired. Our victim appears to have not been involved in any altercation prior to. It just seemed to be on the platform himself and when he was struck by the bullet. That case is very much active, and our people are still out there as we speak.
Any sense of how many young people were on the platform at the time?
Several. Yeah, there were several young people on the platform.
All right, are there any other questions at this time?
DA Krasner, can you get your comment on the shooting on the SEPTA platform last night?
Sure. Well, as Captain Kearney of the Shooting Investigation Group has indicated, there's a very active investigation going in relation to a severely harmful shooting that occurred between two young people at 15th Street. We know that there were quite a few people around. We know that the injuries are extremely serious. And we also know that we have to view this in its proper context. So here's the reality. We are here today on an arrest of two people for a horrific shooting that occurred right near SEPTA. And we are also on this day dealing with the reality that before we got here, there was a shooting that occurred on a SEPTA platform on 15th Street in Center City, Philadelphia. These are frightening. These are terrible things. But I think what today stands for is that there is a vigorous investigation, there's a capable investigation, there is a very collaborative investigation that goes on when these cases occur. It also stands for the fact that SEPTA has remarkable cameras. They have one of the best camera systems in the city. It is, to put it mildly, foolhardy to do anything illegal that is going to be covered by those cameras. We have seen this time and time again. There are a lot of cases that get solved because they occur at or near SEPTA, and so, you know, anyone who is thinking about getting into conflict, anyone who is thinking about engaging in criminal activity of any sort, you're going to get caught. You're going to get locked up. You're going to get prosecuted vigorously, as my office has done time and time again, and you're going to be facing hard time, because that's what you should get if you're committing those kinds of acts in that situation. Having said that, I do also want to be clear about this. The reality is, part of the reason that there is a lot of attention on SEPTA is that those cameras are there. And it is that the news, and I don't say this in any way to be critical, heavily covers things that occur on SEPTA. Leslie Richards, the CEO of SEPTA, informed me, I'd say a couple of weeks ago, that by their calculation, the number of crimes actually occurring on SEPTA is less than 1% of the crimes that are occurring in the city. And there are strong indications that the amount of crime on SEPTA is actually going down. We need to be able to hold two ideas. One idea is that over the last 2 years, violent crime has improved. The other idea is that we need to work even harder to make even more progress. Both of these things are true. The context is true, and the fact that these horrific incidents have happened is true. And I'm really happy to say that I'm standing up here with people who could not be more serious about the encouragement that comes from progress, but also redoubling our efforts to make more progress. All right, we have to go. So many places to be.
One more question. Just to piggyback off of that, hours before this teen was shot, your office filed a suit to block the law that would potentially strip you of your authority over crimes on SEPTA property. And hours later, the 16-year-old was shot. Can you comment specifically in light of that, your suit and the press conference you held yesterday around this time, in light of the shooting.
Sure, I will do so, but briefly, because we all have places to go. So that is not actually a SEPTA law. That is a law that says an unelected prosecutor can grab pretty much any case they want against our will in 80 to 95% of the city. It's dressed up in a costume as if it's a SEPTA law, but if you read it and realize how vague it is, and then you look at the definitions provided, it's not just SEPTA, it's anything within 500 yards of SEPTA. That is one tortured, stretched interpretation, but it's an interpretation that is in that hot mess of a law. So that is really not about SEPTA safety at all. SEPTA safety would mean investing in SEPTA, which certain people in the legislature from a certain party refuse to do. They also refuse to look at what is happening in SEPTA across the county line because it's not about that. What it's actually about is erasing Philadelphia votes in one of the most consequential election years that we have ever seen. We always have vigorously prosecuted SEPTA cases. The fact is that 92% of the criminal matters that SEPTA sends us are charged by us. That is A, a very high percent, and B, it happens to be the same percent as my predecessors. They also charged about 92% of those cases. When the cases are solid, we charge it. So the notion that we are not vigorously prosecuting these cases is nonsense. Today is further proof of that. And the idea that that's actually about SEPTA is false. That is actually about erasing 155,102 votes that were cast for the prosecutor. They wanted to make these decisions, and doing it in one city only because of who lives in that city. All right. I do have to roll one last because you just got here.
Can you say anything about charges for the SEPTA shooting?
Yes. Alyssa, do you want to? Oh, for the SEPTA shooting. Okay. It is a very active investigation. The health of the victim is extremely precarious at this point. Obviously, the usual charges look like they would apply, and those usual charges would include attempted murder. If the victim survives, they would include aggravated assault as a first-degree felony if the victim survives. If the victim does not survive, those charges would include murder. Sure. Los cargos posibles que existen en este caso que pasó en la plataforma de SEPTA incluyen homicidio, asalto agravado y si el víctima sobrevive, podía incluir un esfuerzo para matar, pero que no tuvo éxito. All right, thank you. Sorry my Spanish is not better. Doing what I can here. All right, thank you all. Is it written conference?
Gee, thanks, pal. Thanks for letting me know. Yeah, you got it. Yeah, I didn't know if I was going to be able to get here. Yeah, I got here. Are you still able to join your boss meeting?